Located at the prestigious Ouran Academy at the end of the north hallway on the top floor of the south wing sits an abandoned music room. And once you open that door, you can never go back. If you, like many, have been swept up in a little show called Heated Rivalry, you may be one of its victims who, as Connor Story put it,
it's taught a lot of straight women that their sexuality is actually gay guy.
I think there's been a lot of talk as to why women flock to these romantic stories. Maybe this is a more refreshing take on masculinity for you, maybe this gives you a safer avenue to fantasize, maybe you find both the guys hot. The why is important, but that's also a journey we all have to take on our own. Only you can figure out why Captain Kirk and Spock making out fills you with so much joy. Personally, at the moment, I'm more concerned with the hows. How do we consume this content? How is it written? How does it portray the characters? I think these are important questions to ask for this specific genre of romance directed towards women. Heated Rivalry is a great step for LGBTQ representation in media, especially seeing that it's directed by a gay man, Jacob Tierney. But Game Changers, the story it's based on, is written by a woman, Rachel Reed, so it is written from the female gaze. And I think that's worth examining. I'm not looking to demonize straight women here. I think that's too easy of a train to jump onto. Folks are often quick to make fun of these types of stories and the women who consume them. Man, women don't have class anymore with their smutty literature and their gay heartthrobs. Where are all those girls who used to read Pride and Prejudice? Fuck off. This type of criticism rarely aims to analyze the genre, and more so just makes fun of something that women like. What I think the genre of romantic stories often lacks is true parody and satire, preferably something by someone who actually loves the genre. In my humble opinion, a good parody or satire critiques its target genre and the societal absurdisms around it, while also being a good entry to the genre. In this way, parody and satire are a good way to analyze the genre in good faith. And few shows, if any, have parodied the women's romantic genre, like Ouran High School Host Club. For the uninitiated, Ouran High School Host Club is an anime series based on the manga of the same name written by Bisco Hattori. The show follows Haruhi Fujioka, a scholarship student who attends the prestigious Ouran Academy, the school for the children of the most elite families in society. While looking for a place to study, Haruhi wanders into an abandoned music room that happens to hold one of the school's most popular clubs, the Host Club, which is dedicated to entertaining and catering to the romantic fantasies of the school's girls. But of course, plot ensues and Haruhi breaks a vase worth 8 billion yen, or about $80,000 in 2006. They then have to work for the host club, eventually becoming a host in order to pay off their debt. But there's only one problem. Haruhi is a girl. Or as Netflix so succinctly used to put it, being a part-time gigolo is a great job for a struggling student. There's only one catch. He's a she. I mean, when you put it like that...
For context, in Japan, a host club is an establishment in which young men entertain and flirt with young women.
So it's a very situational gigolo, I guess. What the hell, Netflix?
On the surface, this show sounds like the setup for a typical romantic comedy. Girl is in a new environment with a bunch of rich and pretty men, she's mysteriously beautiful when she takes off her glasses, and clearly antics ensue. But you can tell this show is different very early on.
I found the show when I was 12 years old, and not to be dramatic, but it changed my life. I was just beginning to poke around the romance genre, so I didn't really have the answers to why I like something. This was the first time a show held up a mirror to my girlish views on romance, and made me laugh at them without feeling outright mocked. And at the time I couldn't even conceptualize how this would help me process my relationship with the genre and my own identity. This all sounds grandiose for an anime romantic comedy, but if you watch this show, you'll know what I mean. Ouran is special. For a show that is so deeply rooted in Japanese culture and the tropes of Eastern romance genres, it took Western audiences by storm. There is a lot of common ground with how this genre and its respective fandoms formed in parallel between the East and the West. So even while watching it, if you didn't fully understand all the language used, you could understand what was being parodied. I am not 12 anymore, thank God, but given that Ouran High School Host Club has turned 20, dear God, I wanted to revisit it because I think it's as relevant as ever and prompts some interesting discussions around the romance genre. It holds up a mirror to the genre and those who enjoy it, while also representing some of the faults and traps that this genre often falls into. Because we are exploring one of my favorite shows today, I want to do something a little different. What a better way to discuss this show than having a little sleepover to revisit it with one of my childhood best friends who I originally watched it with. Because as they say, it's my sleepover, and I get to choose the anime. So grab some popcorn and your drink of choice and get cozy as we explore Ouran High School Host Club, the romance genre, and the female gaze. Would you like to say who you are for the folks at home?
Sure. Hi, my name is MildlyGothic. I am a crafty YouTuber. I like doing things in a slightly chaotic manner. I know the right way to do things, I just don't tend to do them that way because it takes too long. I do cosplay, painting, all sorts of things. So if that kind of chaotic artsy content interests you, then please check out my channel.
Yeah, I did want to ask you, so who are you wearing today?
Me, the designer, me, myself, and I, badly taken out of... So I took a business button-up that I have, and that's what I used to make the pattern for the base shirt, and then kind of went from there.
You didn't tell me that.
Oh yeah, and then the shorts are based off of a pair of dog walking shorts that I have that are completely, like, ratted. Like, they are, like, so just torn into pieces. But yeah, I actually have been wearing this set lately, like, leading up to this video.
Nice.
So I think they
They're
will
comfy.
actually be in my permanent rotation, yeah.
I'm wearing an Old Navy original. They were pink. I'm drinking a pink rosé. We've gone for pink today.
I'm drinking a strawberry lemonade spindrift that has Bacardi Black in it, but it looks orange. So the vibe was pink, but it came out orange.
I'm like, there's no orange in this show.
Yeah,
which brings me to, do you know why I dragged you here today?
Vaguely. You've been hinting at this for a while and telling me that I should not, under any circumstances, rewatch this show before we get to do this video.
Yeah, so Ouran has turned 20 this month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, the anime came out in 2006.
Wow.
I know, which is pretty crazy.
I don't know that I like that.
Crazy. So I've been doing a lot of rewatching of it, rereading the manga. So yeah, I was planning for us to watch episodes 1 and 4.
Okay.
Do you remember anything about watching the show? Do you remember when you started watching it?
You're the reason I started watching it.
I'm so sorry.
Pretty sure.
Probably am. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're the reason I started watching it, and I remember it being overwhelming, I think, a little bit, because it just kind of throws you into it. It's not something that tries to build the story.
Mm-hmm.
It does a little bit, but, like, it throws you through, like, Haruhi and, like, discovering the host club. Like, it really just throws you in there so you discover it with her. I mean, that's a classic storytelling tactic.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a character who doesn't know the world, you discover the world through them. But it's very pink.
There's so many guys who I've tried to show this show to, and every time they're like, that's really pink. And I'm like, yeah,
It's so pink.
it's fine. Get over it. And as you can see, the show had no effect on my personal style. None. So I'm definitely the one that got most of my friends into the show. I wanted to share my obsession, and it worked, and I'm so sorry to the people that I dragged down with me. I had a manga library going. Okay, I was giving out books left and right. We had a rotation. You walk into class, someone's reading my manga. Okay? As I mentioned, you can tell the show is different right away, specifically in how they address Haruhi.
So are they, when he's asking, like, what guy you're into, I guess, are they assuming, because they think Haruhi's a guy in this scene,
Oh,
so
yeah.
are they assuming that Haruhi is gay?
Yeah, Tamaki just said it. He was like, who would have thought that, like, the scholarship student would be so openly gay? I am curious how big of a deal that was, because again, this came out in 2006, and they just very openly are like, clearly he's gay.
I mean, this is, like, what, all of 5 minutes into the first episode?
Yep. So here's that scene in question.
I never would have imagined the famous scholar would be so openly gay.
If you watch a lot of anime, specifically shoujo, i.e. anime and manga that is specifically directed towards girls and young women, then you likely know that shows like this that introduce queer themes often skirt around the topic. One of the most popular examples of this is Yuri on Ice. If you're a fan of a Japanese man and a Russian man falling in love to the backdrop of ice-based sports, then boy do I have the show for you. In Yuri on Ice, the two main characters are blatantly in love and even say that they're married, but this is the closest we get to a kiss. Also, throwback to when I was 16 and my computer openly judged my obsession with this show by blatantly organizing my photos like this. There was no need to call me out like that. When this is the closest you can get to a gay romance in an anime without it turning into a yaoi, hearing a character say the G word is a big deal. This show is silly. It knows what it is and it points it out whenever it's given a chance.
It's a reverse harem! This is a reverse harem!
But it also knows its audience.
So, I mean, I think we talked about it a little bit, but do you think that, like, part of the reason of, like, this show being so popular, it falls into the same vein of heated rivalry, but under different, obviously, like, different genres? One is much more sexually explicit.
That was something I wanted to talk about, especially next episode. Because this show is like the only parody, I guess, of women who like men who like men.
Yeah. Because I feel like otherwise it just kind of exists in fandom spaces.
Of course, no show for the women who like men audience would be complete without this key element. I think the most interesting thing, too, about the popular...
That's right, the piss fountain. What? I'm being told it's the characters?
Anyway, parody. I think the weird thing with the popularity of the show is how the fact that it got popular in America when this is like directly a parody of shoujo tropes, so a lot of them are Japanese specific.
But it aligns so well to like fandom and like shipping
It does.
culture.
I think that's the most interesting thing. I think there's a lot of Americans who don't quite understand the parody in this, and it was so absurd that I know when I was first watching this, I knew some of it had to be parody, but I don't think I fully understood the scope of the parody. Because
I don't think I did either, because I don't think I was in those spaces enough to know what it was trying to parody. Because a parody really only works if you understand the source material.
Yes, the premise is fun. Yes, the show will make your heart flutter for no goddamn reason, but all of that would be useless without the characters. Especially when you're a Westerner getting thrown into this for the first time.
as I alluded to, the original members of the host club each represent a shoujo trope. We have Mori, our strong stoic type, Honey, the boy Lolita, Hikaru and Kaoru,
the twins.
Kyoya, the glasses type, and Tamaki, the princely character.
But they're more than their stereotypical archetypes, of course. In addition, most of them are also dumb. Tamaki is the president of the host club and the one that brought everyone together. As the princely character, he's incredibly grandiose and charismatic, if not also self-important and obnoxious. His family owns a chain of hotels, so hospitality is in his blood. I think it's easy to see that he's good at being a host, but the cast summaries at the beginning of the earlier volumes in the manga all say that he is supposedly the most requested host. Like, even the author is not convinced. Maybe Kyoya's inflating these numbers. Tamaki is a bit of a dumbass. He is obsessed with the host club being a family, a complex that largely drives his character because it's in conflict with his feelings for Haruhi. As he famously says,
"This anime is obviously a romantic school comedy. Haruhi and I are the main characters, so that means we are love interests." "Yeah, then what are we?" "You boys are the homosexual supporting cast. So please make sure that you don't step across this line." "You've got to be kidding."
As for the rest of our homosexual supporting cast, we have Kyoya, who is the vice president of the club. As I said, he is the typical glasses character. His name literally comes from the Japanese word for spectacles. He's cold, calculating, and really the brains of the operation. His family runs a healthcare conglomerate, and they have their own private police force, which Kyoya often refers to when threatening to chase people out of the country. He's the one keeping track of Haruhi's debt. All of this makes him sound unpleasant, but to put it short,
I love Kyoya.
we all love Kyoya. Then there's Honey and Mori. They're cousins and foils to each other's archetypes. Mori is the tall, strong, silent character in contrast with Honey, the boy Lolita. Despite being the smallest, Honey is the oldest member. He's adorable, he loves all sweets, and he always carries around his bunny Usa-chan, who I have on my shirt, and he a bit wrinkly. The Lolita archetype isn't present in Western media, at least not how it's presented in the show. I get the impression that this trope, like the Lolita style in Japan, is more concerned about aesthetics than anything. That's why Honey and Mori being paired together provides such an appealing contrast. Finally, we have the twins, Hikaru and Karu. They essentially use people as playthings for their own amusement. Their main thing is,
If you see something you like, we can take an order for you.
Our grandmother even helped us put them on.
But you know the only one who will be undressing you
That's
is me.
weird.
Hikaru,
But
you're embarrassing me in front of everybody.
Twincest!
yeah, it never gets easier to process. Forbidden love between family members is a trope that's often made fun of in this show, but I'm gonna be honest, I didn't do a lot of research into how common this trope actually is in Japan because I didn't want to. I've already researched enough questionable things for this channel, I'm not adding twincest to the list.
In this pairing, Hikaru is the more dominant one.
As is referenced here.
And another thing, how come this stupid script portrays Kaoru as the pitcher?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
They're saying he's the top. He's louder and generally more obnoxious. Kaoru is more observant and tends to go along with Hikaru's whims as they get more extreme, but believe me, they have similar whims. Kaoru is also the only character confirmed to be gay as per the cast summary, which labels him as the handsome homosexual. I am honestly curious if this is just a weird translation or something, because this genuinely surprises me. I never saw it directly brought up in the show or manga, and it's later contradicted in the manga when Kaoru says that he's in love with Haruhi. I've heard of the gay for you trope, but straight for you is certainly new.
Throughout all of these representations, I mean, if you couldn't tell,
The show is incredibly campy. I mean, look at this man, he's resting on the subtitle box. They got a piss fountain. Everything is over the top exaggerated for comedic effect, and again, the show knows what it is and it never fails to point it out.
There's debauchery here!
And of course, no romantic comedy would be complete without its plucky young heroine. Except for this one, because Haruhi is anything but plucky. As my friend had mentioned, we are thrown into this world with Haruhi. Haruhi is the aloof heroine who doesn't know she's special, but for narrative purposes, she is our straight man. She's fed up with these people, she doesn't want to be there, and she's just along for the ride. Haruhi is appealing for a number of reasons, right? Like, she's not like other girls. But maybe that's because she's not a girl? In the very first episode of the show, when Haruhi is revealed to be a girl, she gives a speech that just about defines the attitude of her character.
Listen, Senpai, I don't really care whether you guys recognize me as a boy or a girl. In my opinion, it's more important for a person to be recognized for who they are rather than for what sex they are.
Haruhi is completely unbothered by anything, including her gender. As you can imagine, when you're 12 years old, watching something like this is kind of mind-blowing, especially when you're starting to explore your own gender and sexuality. This was a very eye-opening experience for me, and I can imagine that Haruhi means a lot to many non-binary and trans folks. Throughout the show, Haruhi is comfortable using any pronouns and switches between masculine and feminine appearances often. Of course, this creates a lot of humor throughout the show, but Haruhi's identity is genuinely explored, both relating to her gender expression and her personality. We later learn that Haruhi's perspective is shaped by her father, who cross-dresses as a career. In the manga, we also learn that her dad, who goes by Ranka, is bisexual, but after Haruhi's mother passed away, he only dates men. It is also openly stated that Haruhi's mom had no problem with him cross-dressing.
I'll never love anyone the way I loved Kotoko, and she never had a problem with it, so lay off, would ya?
Overall, Ranka is treated well by the characters of the show. But there is a lot of outdated language that's used to refer to Haruhi's dad, and I will address that later on in the video. I think this all threw Western audiences for a loop. We don't often see gender non-conforming characters in media, let alone in a positive light.
For who
Are
they
they-
are rather than for what
Are
sex
they trying to do trans undertones? Or I guess even overtones, like
Yeah.
You know, I have
I
to
think
say, Senpai,
Cross-dressing has very different cultural contexts.
that's
in-
also very true.
Yeah, in Japan. Japan does in fact have a long history of cross-dressing and gender non-conforming characters. Did want to talk a bit about the cross-dressing element because I think when you go into the show you just kind of know that's the plot. But cross-dressing is a trope in shoujo. There was a really big cross-dressing manga that I think came out in the 50s or 60s in Japan that kind of set up this trope of having cross-dressing characters.
Is the trope that they're recognized as the opposite of what their actual sex is?
More that they're both. That
Okay.
they have I have to find the right wording
Androgyny,
again.
then.
Yeah, I think androgyny is a good word for it. They have like the heart of both a man and a woman. In 1953, a manga called Princess Knight had its debut in Japan. The story follows a girl named Sapphire who must pretend to be a prince so that she can inherit the kingdom's throne rather than the son of the evil duke who would have been next in line. It turns out the princess was born with the heart of a boy and a girl because of a mistake made by an angel named Tink. So God sends him to retrieve the boy heart. But she won't give it to him, so instead the two go on adventures and the prince/princess sometimes fights crime on the side. Also, I watched some of the anime and it fills me with such a specific nostalgia for the claymation Christmas specials that used to air. Like, look at this camera work. This show is considered a pioneer of the shoujo genre in Japan and has influenced a lot of the tropes and stories of the genre. Androgynous heroines became a well-known trope of the genre, and this is clearly reflected through Haruhi. So I think that really works for Haruhi, especially, because I know a lot of folks who are non-binary who find themselves identifying with Haruhi a lot, and that was a big discovery point for them.
And I feel like it's more of the just open acceptance and the fact that it's a plot point, but it's not, the character doesn't have to reveal it to the other characters. They don't have to like make a big point about it. It's just like who they are, and it's there. That is what really sets it apart, because I think that's why a lot of people tend to have problems with representation in Western media, is the character has to say what they are. Otherwise, it doesn't count. It's just like it has to be stated. It has to be like drilled in over and over again, versus it just being part of who they are. Like I think Rosa in Brooklyn Nine-Nine is a really good example of bisexual representation, because like she says it once and then it's never really like explicitly, she's just, now she's dating a guy, now she's dating a girl. Like it's just kind of there and it's part of the show and no one responds any differently.
It is interesting in this show because I think it really is just that this one time. And then in episode 8, there's a lot of gender talk, but I think there's something deeper in there as well. She did have that one quip at the end that in the dub is translated as, I'll just start saying dude and bro now, because in the Japanese version, she says that she'll just start referring to herself with masculine pronouns, but we don't have like a self-identifying, like we say I, we don't have those sorts of masculine pronouns, so it doesn't make sense in translation.
Right.
But that's the biggest acknowledgement she gets from it, but it makes sense too with her father. I've always appreciated how nonchalant the show can be about some of its queer themes. Like when Tamaki refers to the rest of the club as the homosexual supporting cast, Kyoya later on says this.
I had to get my revenge too. I'm sorry, I just don't think I'm supporting cast, homosexual or otherwise.
It's just a refreshing attitude to see. Haruhi was a really big inspiration for me when I was growing up. I felt a lot of uncertainty around my identity, gender or otherwise, so hearing someone say that they didn't care what people called them made me feel more content with that uncertainty. I'm sure many people have had similar experiences with the show. Speaking of certainty, as a Westerner, I cannot speak with certainty on the views of these tropes in Japan, but I can imagine the representation matters just as much. As I mentioned, despite the heavy cultural context of some of the tropes of the show, it is beloved by both Eastern and Western audiences. Which brings me to one of the biggest elements it parodies: us. Let's talk about episode 4 and Renge.
Oh, this is the girl I was thinking of.
Yeah, this is Rebecca.
Rebecca. Is Rebecca not what I said? Doesn't this girl's name start with like an R? Is it Rebecca?
I don't think it's Rebecca.
Is there a Rebecca? Am I just thinking of a different character?
I don't think there's a Rebecca.
I have a
there's
you
a...
know who I'm
through my bag in the pond.
What is her name? You know who I'm thinking of.
I do know who you're thinking of, and I'm not going to spoil it for you yet. I was teasing you. Her name's not Rebecca.
I was like, I could have sworn her name was Rebecca.
I'm your father, and I want you to feel free
Jesus
to live your life
Christ,
however
that's
you
a lot of
please.
plushies.
You know that I'll let you do anything you like.
I mean, I probably have as many photos of my dog in my phone, but I feel like that's a little bit different.
At least your dog's real. Well, aren't we just throwing stones in our little glass house? Renge is the host club's self-proclaimed manager. She bursts onto the scene after discovering the son of one of her dad's business associates looks like her favorite character from a dating sim. And that son is Kyoya. While obsessing over Kyoya, she takes charge of the host club by trying to redefine each of the boys' archetypes. Because, as she puts it,
Except for Kyoya, all of your characters are looked for!
this devolves into a movie production where we flesh out the boys' new characters. From this, we see that Renge really views the boys as characters rather than their own people.
If you judge people by their appearance, you're stereotyping them and you'll never see the person inside.
What is this deep emotional commentary in my campy gay anime?
I love Renge. She is hilarious and honestly does not get enough recognition. Her voice actress in the dub, Monica Rial, did a fantastic job bringing her to life. Renge is a parody on otaku culture in Japan. An otaku is someone who is obsessed with anime and everything anime adjacent, and are stereotypically reclusive. In Renge's case, she's obsessed with a dating sim and shoujo manga. Her closest Western parallel would be a fangirl, and that is actually what the manga initially chooses to translate it as.
Does Renge know that Haruhi's a girl?
No.
Okay. Does Renge find out that Haruhi's a girl?
No.
Throughout the whole show?
Yeah, throughout the whole show.
Wild! Why did I not realize that?
She does make references about how she's okay that Haruhi has a homosexual relationship on the side, because she does think they're dating.
Oh, that's funny. That's bad.
Yep. Uh-huh.
That's interesting. The social dynamics of this show are actually complicated if you actually think about it.
Oh, yeah. No, and Renge is a fascinating commentary on us.
Yeah, the women who like men who like men.
Yep.
I thought you had feelings for Haruhi as well.
Oh, I do! But I have no problem with Haruhi having a homosexual relationship on the side.
Don't we all just love that feeling when our boyfriend has a homosexual relationship on the side? Renge parodies the long line of women who like men that came before her. Throughout the whole show, we see her obsessing over the host club and overflowing with emotion, like in this scene where a character nicknamed Casanova, who is known as the scary heir to a Yakuza syndicate, learns Haruhi is a girl and tries to confess his love for her at the host club. But to them, it just looks like the tough mafia boy is coming out as gay.
The look on his face is just priceless. I've never seen someone so in love before. Hello, Sumire? Forget about your stupid violin lesson and hightail it to the host club. I'm telling you, this is a 1 in a million chance to witness something truly amazing.
This behavior is similar to, if not an exaggeration, of fangirl culture that we've seen in the West, even if it uses different vocabulary and slang. Granted, she also, she likes the typical shoujo tropes and that sort of thing, but she does gain a specific, what's a good word for it? I don't like the word excitement. They use the word moe. I think that's, yes, they use the word moe, and the closest translation we have is back in like 2010s when we used to say I can't. It was just that something is very cute. It's overflowing you with emotion.
So cuteness aggression.
Cuteness aggression, I think, is a good one. It's not always cute though. It'll be like, hey, that gangster has a gay crush on Haruhi. I could eat 3 bowls of rice. That's an expression she says a lot.
I remember that, yeah.
As mentioned, 2 of the expressions Renge frequently uses are moe and I can eat 3 bowls of rice.
Moe refers to feelings of affection, adoration, devotion, and excitement felt towards characters that appear in manga, anime, video games, and other media. As I mentioned, I think the closest translation we have to moe is maybe in the 2010s, I can't. Or maybe I died for them, but that's not exactly slang. I don't know. I mean, I guess it is. I mean, I'm not throwing that around in my workplace. According to the editor's notes from volume 8 of the manga, when Renge says I could eat 3 bowls of rice, she's saying that the situation gives her enough okazu, which is a side dish to accompany rice, for a full meal. I guess the closest thing we have now is like, I have been fed. Now, despite the cultural barrier, I think we can all look at Renge and understand exactly what she's feeling. In Japan, Renge and any girl or woman who loves men are called Fujoshi, which literally translates to rotten girl. The word was originally used as an insult for women obsessed with this genre, but has since been reclaimed. The sentiments that Renge expresses are familiar to us because this genre evolved similarly in the East and West. In the West, we saw the emergence of slash fiction in the 1960s. Here, the slash is referring to the slash used to separate pairings being written about, M/M, Draco/Harry, and in the case of the original slash fiction,
one thing I do have to ask you about, because this is where a lot of, in Western culture especially, this started to originate, you are a Star Trek SME, I would say.
Okay.
So I'm sure
Where is this going?
you know about the infamous Captain Kirk Spock shipping that has been happening since the 60s. That's where a lot of this in Western culture started, especially for fictional characters.
Really?
Yes, no, this is where it started. It started the genre of slash fiction. And it started in a fan fiction community. It was people basically, there's like a black market for Spock and Captain Kirk fan fiction.
Wild. Well, I don't know, that strikes me as odd, especially because the original series was such basically a blip, like when it happened, and then it, was just kind of an underground cult following. But maybe that's kind of what led to the strength of it.
Yeah.
Is it was such a small, like, community and fandom. I mean, because I would describe them as a very good role model of just, like, kind of masculine friendship. That's wild. I think I knew that it was a thing. I don't know that I knew that it was basically kind of the cornerstone of Western shipping culture.
Especially for gay shipping, and it was big, of course, amongst women, which I think in a niche fandom community too, especially in the 60s, that's a big deal. That's right, Captain Kirk and Spock were the original slash pairing. While the community was originally small, over time these stories would expand in circulation. It started with chain letters and then eventually evolved to zines, self-published hard copies of fan content that would sometimes be circulated by mail. Throughout the 80s and 90s, slash fiction continued to evolve with the popular shows at the time. Once the internet came into play, this sort of content moved from the underground into more accessible spaces that we know today. Fanfiction.net, DeviantArt, Wattpad, AO3, Tumblr. Eventually, these fanfiction stories began to breach containment. That Twilight fanfiction you like? Now it's the top romance novel of the 2010s. Your self-insert fic where you're dating Harry Styles? They've made it a movie. Hockey romance stories like Heated Rivalry evolved from the hockey subsection of what is known as real person fiction, or RPF. This is the subsection of slash fiction where we get pairings like Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson, or Brendan Urie and Ryan Ross.
Anyone else also scarred by the milk fic? I'm thinking of starting a support group.
The Game Changer series takes inspiration from real hockey players, but is not explicitly about them.
We've come full circle with our fanfiction, and now it's just fiction. Now, in Japan from the 1960s onwards, we start to see a similar emergence.
And I think another interesting thing too, I'm always interested in how things emerge in parallel between cultures, and I think this is a good example of that because Star Trek, well, this was happening in American Western culture of this gay shipping over here. BL, which is boys love, was starting to pop up in Eastern culture, and there was the same thing of like a black market gay fan fiction and like gay manga that was being passed around all countries across Asia. To parallel the emergence of slash fiction in the West came the boys love or BL genre in the East. BL was influenced by the rise of shoujo manga in the late 1950s and began with women who formed their own manga circles to self-publish work known as doujinshi. As you can see, this is very similar to the circulation of zines in the West. From this, we get the emergence of yaoi, which typically refers to the gay porn genre of manga and anime. The term likely comes from an acronym of Yamanashi, Ichinashi, Imanashi, which translates to no climax, no point, no meaning. I read another claim that this may have come from a shortening or the imagery around the phrase Yamate oshiri ga itai kara, which means stop, my ass hurts. I've seen most people say that the word yaoi came from the acronym. I just thought it was my civic duty to share the stop my ass hurts hypothesis. You're welcome. It seems the BL genre has thrived more in Asia than slash fiction has in the West, but we are starting to see a break into the mainstream here as well. That is all to say that while there are different cultural undertones, the BL and MM slash fiction genres' parallel evolutions means that Renge is an effective parody of any Fujoshi. But it's like a mirror to the audience, especially when I don't know how much you remember of how you felt when you watched this show, but there was always that like fangirliness for me, especially around, like, I love Tamaki. He was always my favorite
Oh,
character for some reason.
Well, and I think the format of the show kind of encourages you to, like, again, it's kind of like fun and campy, and it's, but I think the reason audiences get so into it is because, again, it's both a love letter and a parody of the genre, because but like it shows a mirror to the audience, but it also like lets them in on the joke, and I think that's what allows it to be so endearing and so much fun, because you're self-aware of the fact that you are included and part of what they're making fun of.
Yeah, I guess I also realized that it was making fun of me, or maybe participating with me is what I felt like at the time.
Laughing with you instead of at you.
Yeah, because it is a mirror up to us, and also especially just what they're saying of kind of poking at that behavior that we have when we watch these shows.
Renge is an avenue for us to laugh at ourselves while also being a critique of fandom and Fujoshi culture.
As I discussed, Renge sees the boys in the host club as their archetypes and makes them a canvas for her fantasies. She is the ultra-obsessed fan whose fantasies are leaking into the real world.
One of the common critiques of the MM and BL genre is that it fetishizes gay men. While this is debatable in the fictional realm, this does become a problem when real people are involved. Social media has ushered in an era of parasocial relationships that facilitates the leak between the fictional realm in which actors play into the real world.
Well, and then I think Renge especially is interesting if you think of like how people treat actors as the character or responsible for decisions in a show that they can't control. Like, you know, and how toxic some fandoms are. Like, people hold the actors to some standard outside of the show as if they have control over these things, and they don't. There's no, like, parasocial relationships. It's worse in the age of social media.
And I think Renge is the perfect example of having a parasocial relationship.
Yes. and putting your mental image of who you think the actor is because you only know them through their character onto the person themselves.
Yeah. I think now things have been okay with heated rivalry. I've definitely seen some things. I think, you know, Hudson Williams hard launched his girlfriend. He's handled things very well, because I think even in interviews where like they have him read tweets and all, I feel like there's so many microaggressions that are just terrible that they make him read and shit. And even, you know, people saying them in the first place, let alone having him read them to a camera. But I haven't seen too many people freak out over him hard launching his girlfriend, but even just people like I cannot remember the actor's name, but the actor who plays Scott Hunter is the only one who has confirmed his sexuality. He is bi, and him and Connor's story were seen at an airport together, and people were freaking the fuck out over it. Despite the why, what does the behavior present itself as? Because I think another thing that people don't want to realize or come to terms with is like, you know, I discovered this show at 12, 13. So this was something I was discovering at like 12 and 13. So I've gotten time to mature with it. I feel bad for the women who are discovering this now, but I can look back at my teenage behavior and see that I'm really happy I had a lot of folks to discuss it with, because there was always that degree of problematic, and I don't think I was fetishizing things, but it definitely was a weird fangirliness. I think that's normal when you're younger. The issue is when it keeps happening and it starts to affect others.
Well, and not growing out of it, and then leading to it, again, like bleeding into the real world. And when people get weird about actors who are in a show together, like dating or not, it gets odd. I think, because my fandom ship thing is, I was a BBC Sherlock girly.
Yeah, yep.
So, you know, the John Locke, is that what the ship name was? Yeah. I remember that being a huge thing. I wasn't really on Tumblr. Wasn't allowed to, thanks parents.
They saved you.
I still got a lot of it because of, you know, the friends I had, so you.
Yeah.
Or others, and I don't know if I remember the why. I think it was also a community of, it was a fun thing to bond over. And I think especially if you discover it when you're young, I think it does kind of harken to the communication of also just healthy male friendships.
Yeah, That's a good point. This show, I think especially, does show a lot of male camaraderie, as a reverse harem.
Yeah.
Laughing at yourself is healthy. Again, I love Renge, and I'm so happy I had a show like this at a young age to help me examine and question my own behavior while also fostering a community around something that is so often used to shame young girls. You know, I think we can all learn something from Renge.
Today's going to be a beautiful day. After all, today you've learned a very important lesson that will help you live happily ever after, and I'm so glad that you finally understand. I think you're ready to move on to the next level, Renge.
That's meta.
Yeah,
Hello, ladies.
I
Come on
think
in.
Renge needs a therapist.
Video of that film you made. I thought it
Valid.
too, and so did
Yeah.
I.
Get therapy. Now that we have more cultural context, I want to discuss how Ouran specifically fits into the Fujoshi world. According to an article from Anime News Network, Ouran was a pioneer of a genre known as Fujoshi comedy. These are comedies that seek to break down the typical tropes found in shoujo and BL, either in a comedic sense or by adding more complexities to these tropes and archetypes where it wouldn't otherwise exist. Tamaki is a great example of this. Initially, Tamaki is presented to us as the princely character. He's charming, grandiose, hospitable, an elite member of society, pretty narcissistic, and French. On the surface, that's all he is. If not also an idiot. As Renge would say,
It feels like something's missing in his character arc.
Tamaki ends up being a very complex and tragic character. He's the illegitimate child of the school's chairman who fell in love with an aristocratic French woman while abroad. Tamaki's grandmother doesn't accept him but said he should move to Japan to prove himself as the possible future head of the family. Tamaki's mother is very sick and would not be able to move to Japan with him. Plus, her family has also lost their fortune, so Tamaki's grandmother offered to pay for her care if he moves. So at 14, Tamaki decided to move and has not seen his mother since. Since his grandmother sees him as a disgraceful illegitimate son, he's not allowed to live in the main house and is very lonely. So for him, the host club became his found family. Despite his narcissism and idiocy, the hosts all care for him deeply because Tamaki sees them for who they are and has helped them break out of their societal and self-placed confines. The host club all agree that they're happy that Tamaki is blindly cheerful because it shields him from the pain that his family situation would otherwise cause. But while he's shielded from the brunt of the pain, he's still lonely. Just stab me while you're at it, that'll hurt less. The degree to which he takes his found family seriously is typically played for laughs, but anytime the show, and especially the manga, take a deeper look, it's incredibly sad. Due to his own family situation, Tamaki's model of a real family is based on fictional representations. All families should be perfect and nuclear. A father, a mother, maybe some shady twins, the distant cousins, I guess, and the perfect daughter. While the show trends towards themes that support gender non-conforming identities, Tamaki often pushes Haruhi to be more feminine, with very little success. His enforcement of gender roles is only seen with Haruhi, who he sees as his daughter. He's perfectly fine with Kyoya being the mother of the scenario and still being Kyoya. This desire for Haruhi to be more feminine also comes from his desire for her, but he's kind of an idiot, so he can only rationalize it as what a father would want his daughter to be. Falling in love with Haruhi is a threat to the familial structure he has created for the host club. I say he's an idiot always in an affectionate manner because really his perfect family imagery is a coping mechanism for what he's dealt with his own family. Side note, inadvertently the comedy of Tamaki being obsessed with the host club being a family is amplified when viewed through a Western lens. For example, there's a slightly different cultural context for what he says here, as we can see in this amazing blooper from the dub.
Me, dear?
What is it now, Daddy? Oh.
Really?
Interestingly, Tamaki's so-called fatherly views and challenges to them have been a staple of BL since its inception. In 1961, Japanese author Mari Mori wrote a novel called A Lover's Forest, which scholars consider to be the first BL novel. She went on to write 2 other influential BL novels, I Don't Go on Sundays and The Bed of Withered Leaves. Each of these books portray the love between a middle-aged aristocratic man and a teenage boy. Kazumi Nakaike, a scholar of erotic literature, describes how these relationships challenge what Freud calls the law of the father in her book Fantasies of Cross-Dressing, Japanese Women Write Male-Male Erotica.
She describes how the young men in a lover's forest and a bed of withered leaves, Apollo and Leo respectively, fit the characterization of a male equivalent to the femme fatale, i.e. the homme fatale. It's fatale, yeah. It's not fatal. It's French.
Fatal.
We gotta stop letting the French name things. As she says, first of all, these boys apparently make every effort to become perfect objects of their patron's surrogate father's desire, a role that effectively constitutes the balance of patriarchal power in these relationships. Both Leo and Paolo are sensitive to their patron's controlling and dominating gaze. However, in both cases, their desperate struggle to obey the law of the father is disturbed by the appearance of a third party who is called the Dark Man. During the course of the narrative development in both novels, the Dark Man functions as a medium through which the homme fatale boys are gradually able to discover their real natures, which they previously did not recognize. They thereby transform themselves into uncanny entities who function to subvert patriarchal harmony. Without getting too psychosexual, Freud's Law of the Father asserts the idea of social constructs in an unconscious sense of authority, with the father as the subject of control and the mother and son as objects of the control.
Freud more literally defines this as the father forbidding his son from realizing his unconscious desire to sleep with its mother. It always comes back to Oedipus with this guy. I don't know what the hell he was snorting, but it was not pure. Well, I'm not a huge fan of Freud and the psychoanalytical approach to literary criticism. This analysis does lay out what has become a staple in the romance and BL genre, and we can definitely see this reflected in Tamaki. Just let me cook.
Tamaki's delusion of the perfect family can be seen as an attempt to enforce the law of the father. Similar to the homme fatale in Mori's stories, we can see the shoujo fatale in Haruhi. Now, Haruhi doesn't go through some discovery of her nature, nor does she actively try to seduce Tamaki. It is simply her nature, her relaxed attitude towards gender norms, as well as Tamaki's desire for her which challenges the so-called law of the father here. This creates a sense of uncanny in Tamaki, another Freudian term which refers to the fear of something that is familiar now seeming foreign. We see a pretty severe case of the uncanny with Tamaki. There's a heart-wrenching scene in the manga where Tamaki begins to realize that his feelings towards Haruhi are romantic, and even the small inkling of a realization causes him to become incredibly sick. His love for her challenges his patriarchal worldview of the family. With this analysis of Ouran, we see an attempt to subvert aspects of the romance genre as well as patriarchal constructs, because with many of these stories, we see an escape from or a subversion of the patriarchal confines placed on women.
The shoujo and BL genre, and in turn the MM genre in the West, have been criticized for their unrealistic depictions of romance in general, but also the lived experiences of the LGBT community, with some calling these depictions outright problematic. I think these are fair criticisms and something we should discuss. Ouran itself very much pokes fun at these things. However, what we see from this analysis of both Mori's stories and Ouran is that these stories often serve as a fantasy for women in more ways than romantic or sexual. They are a means to break out of the patriarchal bounds of both society and gender. I really like this statement from an article written by E. Alex Young for Vulture titled Girls Who Like Boys Who Like Boys. Sick cover, by the way, where he describes the common ground between gay men and Fujoshi.
I'd like to propose a right of reconciliation. Gay critiques of MM romance and BL are reminiscent of early critiques of drag that said the art form was mocking women. In both instances, the subjective I is key. The BL writer is not writing about gay men, but herself, just as the drag queen is creating a female persona for himself. Playing with the semiotics of the other gender is a way to explore those aspects within oneself that social norms have prohibited. When the critic believes themselves to be the target or derision or fetishization, the reality is that it may not be about them at all.
Creators and consumers of BL or MM content seek to explore outside the bounds of societal constructs, and Ouran takes this to a new place.
While Tamaki's attitude is problematic on the surface, the relationship between Tamaki and Haruhi subverts the homme fatale / shoujo fatale analysis because Haruhi doesn't seduce Tamaki by any means. It is simply her existing that challenges Tamaki's belief, which is a very refreshing take on this trope and accurate to the experiences of many women. Of course, Tamaki isn't the only character who subverts shoujo tropes. Notably, the twins are a turning point in the tone of the show where the characters begin to break from their archetypes. Yes, on the surface we see twincest, but Ouran dives into this to show the twins' unhealthy codependency, which is a result of past trauma.
And also incredibly heartbreaking. I just wish they'd stop doing whatever that is. I know this all seems severe for what is an incredibly silly show, but as a satire, it is an example of what it parodies. So, So remember how I said Ouran holds up a mirror to the genre while also falling into some of the pit traps of said genre? Well, we're not gonna watch this episode, but do you remember the Lobelia Club? Or I guess the Zuka Club, but the Lobelia girls?
Oh, vaguely?
The lesbians?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, that took me a second.
The lesbians. The Zuka Club is a club from the Lobelia Girls Academy. Plot-wise, they are a rival to the host club because they want to recruit Haruhi. Their club is based off of a Japanese all-female theater group called the Takarazuka Review. Seeing as they are all female, they play both the male and female parts. Funnily enough, Princess Knight also took inspiration from this theater group, so they're really a staple of cross-dressing culture and gender nonconformity in Japan. Ouran's show/manga makes the joke that because they play both parts and have no need for men in their shows, they also have no need for men romantically. This is clearly the parody aspect. It is so unserious, and the author makes her views very clear, but their depiction does fall into the predatory lesbian trope, i.e. the idea that lesbians coerce women into sleeping with them. We see a very forceful type of flirting. Here it is based on this idea that the Zuka Club has that men are useless and Haruhi needs to be saved from these stupid boys who are forcing her to hide her precious maidenhood. Ew. It is very exaggerated and over the top. For the characters, this idea is reinforced through their fan club. Again, very unserious. While this is a parody and shown in a very campy manner, it's worth examining why these tropes show up. In this case, it seems to serve as a way to indicate that the Zuka Club is the clear bad guy rival to the host club, and to explore some conflicts surrounding Haruhi's identity. Although that's a conflict that only kind of exists. You know, will she embrace her more masculine side or her feminine side? Will she leave the host club? That properly serves the story, but unlike other tropes in the show, the predatory lesbian trope isn't directly challenged or made fun of. It's campy and exaggerated and silly, but the joke is always, damn, look at those crazy lesbians. And not in a, maybe looking at lesbians in this way is kind of absurd and problematic. Oddly enough, the manga handles the Zuka Club better in my opinion. The second time the girls show up, they kidnap Haruhi and force her to act in a play they're putting on. In the anime, it's revealed to be a plot for the leader of the Zuka Club, Lady Benibara, to steal Haruhi's first kiss. Ew. This is very different than the manga, where their plot is just to have Haruhi act as an understudy in order to show the other girls in the play a negative example of acting and dancing. Completely different vibe, and it's more of an examination on the crazed fandom around the Zuka Club than a means to push the predatory lesbian plot. Here it's more of a laughing with you / ourselves type of comedy. But the real out of left field change for the Zuka Club is, in the anime they're Nazis and in the manga they are not Nazis.
What? Why did they become Nazis?
I don't know. They literally hail. Like, it's so... Sorry. Yeah, so they're fascist. You know, the imagery's pretty clear. Overall, they're portrayed pretty militantly throughout the show. This was not the case in the manga, and I don't know why they did this. And I cannot find answers besides maybe trying to exaggerate them as a villain. But like, they couldn't have done anything else. While Ouran is considered to be ahead of its time, this is one of the pitfalls of the genre that it falls into. Through the 2000s, 2010s, and even now, there wasn't a lot of positive LGBT representation. Ouran was one of those shows that provided this representation, even if it was slight. Again, even in 2016, 10 years after Ouran came out, this was the queer anime of the year. As the media landscape evolves to include more of these stories, we have to consider how they're being told. There is a lot of queer representation in media that's written from the female gaze, specifically the straight female gaze. As I mentioned before, female writers of BL and MM stories are often doing this as a form of expression outside the bounds of societal expectations. When there aren't a lot of queer stories being told, this can lead to some gaps in representation and, in the worst case, harmful representation. Jacob Tierney, the showrunner for Heated Rivalry, has touched on this in some of his interviews. When discussing his perspectives on sex as a gay man and how he brought that to Heated Rivalry, he said,
in MM romance written by women that I have never been, I've always been like, that's not us, is like, fucking, you have to say I love you before you eat an ass. not true. This is a part where I'm like, I feel like I have to go forward as a gay man and be like, enough. We do this on the reg. Everybody likes it. We're doing it here. We don't say this isn't marriage.
Couldn't have put it better myself. Even though Jacob Tierney loves this series, he acknowledges that it has its gaps, and his lived experiences can bridge this. On a similar note, I've heard the Game Changer series uses the word slit a lot when referring to male genitalia, and that's not how men work. Anyway, going back to the Zuka Club, yes, this was a different time, but when you're growing up and this is possibly the only exposure you've had to queer themes like this, the predatory lesbian trope isn't exactly a happy addition. As the show aged, moments like this have definitely tainted aspects of it. Looking back, I think we should learn a lesson from this and work to foster better representation for all members of the LGBT community in media. And this won't take away the freedom that BL and MM authors have in expressing themselves, it'll just create better stories. On a similar note, we also have to talk about Haruhi's dad. As I alluded to earlier, this show uses outdated language to refer to Haruhi's dad, notably the T-slur used against transgender people. This is used in both the anime and the manga. While researching this video, I've seen a lot of different perspectives on the use of this word. One of the more interesting ones that I wanted to dive into is why the English translation chose this word over the original Japanese word. Translators not only have to translate the source material into the target language, but translate it for the target audience. Some words don't have a direct translation, so they have to make assumptions on what they believe their audiences will and will not understand. This is where you see a lot of the debate around dubs versus subs. Typically speaking, the subtitled version is the directly translated manuscript, whereas the dubbed version will often make changes either to better synchronize with the animation or provide a more culturally relevant translation. Sometimes jokes and niche cultural references won't land well with a foreign audience. I like to think of this as the direct translation versus the adapted translation. The first time I noticed this was when I accidentally switched over to the sub for Black Butler, another anime from a very different time in my life. In the subbed version, when one of the characters, Lao, tells a joke, we see whereas in the dub we get
It's a classic. On which side does a tiger have the most stripes? On the outside. Get it? Haha.
Sleeping Tiger is a reference to the Chinese zodiac, so it seems like the adapters thought Western audiences wouldn't understand this, but they also had to explain why there was a tiger on screen, so we get this awkwardly paced line. It's not an easy job. For Ouran, it's pretty difficult to find the subbed version with the directly translated subtitles, so most of the people I know have watched the dubbed version, and it is well done. For a long time in Western audiences, this show was only available on Netflix, which has both the dubbed and original audio, but it only has the subtitles for the English dubbed as indicated by the closed captions label. Pro tip, if you want the direct translation for your shows, use the subtitles that are labeled as English, not English CC. The reason I'm harping on this for so long is, 1, I find it interesting, and 2, well, this is an assumption and I may be wrong, I'm under the impression that most of Ouran's Western audience has not seen how the direct translation refers to Ranka. In the original Japanese, they refer to Haruhi's dad with a word that, from my understanding, is derogatory, but I want to use it here for educational purposes. They say he is an okama that works at an okama bar. This word most commonly refers to male cross-dressers or effeminate gay men, but can also refer to a transgender woman. The reason I've spent so much time looking into the translation is because I believe intent is important. The vocabulary that we use to refer to gender nonconforming folks has evolved a lot in a relatively short amount of time. I wanted to know what the original use of this word was. In a YouTube video I watched, I heard a claim that the dub changed this to something derogatory when it wasn't originally, so of course I wanted to look into this to confirm whether or not this was the case. For context on that, the voice actor for Tamaki, Vic Mignogna, was accused of sexual harassment in 2019 and has since been in an ongoing legal battle with multiple parties. You know, at this point I'm just disappointed. I have found out that so many people whose work I admire actually suck, and all I can feel is disappointment. There aren't many videos out there on Ouran compared to other topics I've covered, so this perception is likely skewed, but I saw a noticeable number of comments targeting Tamaki specifically for using this word, even though it is used multiple times by other characters, including Ranka. So I don't think it's fair to blame one character here. I think we should look at the show as a whole. Also, I think some of this targets Tamaki because of the accusations against Mignogna. From everything I've researched, this truly looks like a case of outdated language used in both the dubbed and the original version. I have asked myself why they didn't just use the term cross-dresser more often, but looking at how the word was contextually placed and the fact that the T-slur wasn't seen as a slur in 2006, I do understand why they translated it that way. I think we can categorize this as something that has no ill intent, but certainly did not age well. For those of you whose views of the show have been tainted by this word, I truly am sorry. I know hearing that word can sometimes feel like a punch in the gut, and it truly is jarring hearing it in the show. It's important to look at how and why the word was used, but not use that as a means of dismissing its use. Language evolves, and understanding why and taking care not to harm others is important. Finally, I couldn't talk about the show's controversies and not talk about episode 8. In episode 8, the host club goes to the beach, because every good anime has a beach episode, and the boys are having a competition to try and find out what Haruhi's worst fear is. Basically, they want the honor of knowing her best by knowing her fears. It is not a good plan. They conclude that Haruhi is fearless because she's the most unbothered person ever, but because of this they worry she may be reckless. While she was on a cliff with some of the club's patrons, some guys came over and started harassing them. Haruhi stands up to them on her own, and before the guys can get there to help her, the gang of ruffians throw her into the water. Tamaki jumps after her and scolds her for not asking for help.
Why did you confront them? What made you think you would stand a chance? You against two boys?
But it doesn't matter that they're boys and I'm a girl. I was there, I had to do something. There wasn't any time to think.
That's no excuse, you idiot! Don't forget, you're a girl!
Tamaki stops talking to Haruhi because he's mad at her, but he's really bad at it. Luckily, Haruhi is more stubborn and can carry the non-talking for both of them. Eventually, Haruhi understands that she didn't necessarily do anything wrong, this is just Tamaki's manifestation of worry about her. Later that night, her and Tamaki speak again. It begins to storm, and we learn that Haruhi is afraid of thunder. Tamaki realizes that Haruhi is just fiercely independent and never had anyone to rely on before. So by the end, both of them understand each other's actions. It culminates into this really sweet moment of character growth for these two, even if it turns into a kink joke.
With the blindfold on, you can't see anything, and then the earplugs help muffle any sound.
Wow, yeah, you're right.
You nasty pervert.
I know some people take issue with this plotline because of Tamaki's gendered speech to Haruhi. Some look at this as the show contradicting its other themes which challenge the gender binary, and on the surface, I get it. It looks as if the show is saying Haruhi is a girl and weak, even though she often says that her gender identity isn't what defines her. But this argument is more about the conflict between Tamaki and Haruhi's different perspectives. I think the speech was pretty natural for Tamaki's character, given how he latches onto gender roles due to his own turbulent family situation. Please see my Freudian analysis from earlier. And at his core, he was worried about Haruhi. Additionally, the other members don't latch on to the gender aspect of what Tamaki said, they were just worried. They just spent the last half of the episode trying to find out what she was afraid of, and now they're seeing that her being afraid of nothing can make her a danger to herself. Plus, the reconciliation of this conflict focuses on how Haruhi was forced to be independent her whole life, and Tamaki comes to terms with that and tries to support her. And right before this scene, we saw the guys running away like a bunch of girls from a snake as a contrast to Haruhi, so the lecture he gives is pretty ironic. All in all, I get where this criticism is coming from, but the conflict here isn't strictly about Haruhi's physical limitations as a girl, so... Also, there's this other part of the episode. So, Haruhi is stubborn, and she doesn't understand what she did wrong. After they eat dinner that night and go to their rooms, Haruhi accidentally mistakes Kyoya's room for hers. He tells her that she stirred up a lot of trouble and that he had to send the girls bouquets as an apology for their distress. So of course this would be added to her debt. But...
You can pay me back with your body.
I don't think anyone is ever ready for this scene. It feels really out of character for Kyoya, but we do get this brief explanation.
You won't do it, Kyoya-senpai. I know. Because it wouldn't do you any good. I know what you're doing. You're just trying to prove what Tamaki-senpai said earlier.
One of the defenses that I've seen for the scene is that Haruhi knew Kyoya wouldn't hurt her and all, but it's really hard to ignore that gnawing feeling that this feels wrong for Kyoya, that it's a drastic tonal shift for the show. Oh, and it looks like he's trying to sexually coerce her? Why I find the scene so fascinating, though, is because this was my favorite episode when I first watched the show. Yeah. Kyoya is a fan favorite. We all love Kyoya. But is it despite this, or partially because of it? I think there's going to be a fair amount of people who want to run to the comments and say, what are you talking about? Are you trying to defend his actions? How could you? No, I'm exploring the scene with nuance. Hear me out. In the manga, the author gives us tidbits on who the readers have voted as their favorite characters. In the volume that came after the one with the beach episode, the author mentions that Kyoya got way more popular after the events from this episode. By volume 9, she estimated him to be ranked either 1 or 2. This is a weird example of how Ouran holds up a mirror to the audience in a lot of different contexts. As I've gotten older and re-examined Ouran, the context of the scene has been on my mind a lot. The tone of the scene is not comedic, the scene is not challenging or making fun of this sort of trope. In fact, this scene is a pivotal moment in advancing the characters' arcs. No matter which way you swing it, this was a partial use of the ravishing trope and young female audiences loved it. Again, as an adult, I've thought about the why on this one a lot. This is a common trope in romances that people point to as being problematic, but it's popular nonetheless. I think we all know that the why on this one has to be complicated. If you're curious after you finish this video, I highly recommend this video essay on Twilight by the Queen, the Myth, the Legend, ContraPoints, which touches on this trope and bodice rippers. I unfortunately don't have the time to break this trope down as effectively as she does. This is all to say, the beach episode held up a mirror for me to reflect on my feelings without it even trying to do this. These two conflicting perspectives can live alongside each other. The scene is kind of problematic, and I think anyone would be in the right to call that out, but it also made Kyoya more popular. On top of all this, I can't help but to laugh because these are some profound realizations for what is a very silly anime. Maybe the real parody was us. It's cool, seeing it now come to fruition globally, that Ouran was really big both in Eastern and Western culture, and despite that, it's still the only parody that I've seen of this behavior, and I think now we do need a parody of this more than ever, because it's about to get big.
I think a parody would be good. I think it's been a little far too overdue, especially with how much kind of this shipping culture and this parasocial kind of dynamic has changed with social media. Like, it's crazy how applicable this still is 20 years later, yet I think something new would be able to explore those even new or more modern avenues.
You're right, it's held up a lot over the past 20 years. I really hope they reboot this. And
do you want a remake or a reboot?
Reboot. I think it has to be a reboot at this point. They changed a lot from the manga that I think it'd be cool for them to go back and actually recreate it as it is in the manga, and also the ending to the show is just non-canon. It just doesn't work. So they couldn't really continue it. It would have to be a full reboot, and I'm okay with that. I can tell you right now, I want a reboot of this show so badly. When I was younger, it was always like, where's season 2? We gotta have season 2. But as time has gone on, I think a reboot is more appropriate. For one, it'd be a good way to rectify some of the poorly aged material and do some reimagining. Looking at the English dub, we'd likely need new voice actors for various reasons, very much including the accusations against Vic Mignogna. Plus, we really gotta nix the anime's ending. There's this whole drama about the host club ending because of this girl, Claire. She's, like, how do I say this?
A total whore.
Yeah. Also, another point for the show's amazing bloopers. Eclair tells Tamaki she can take him to his mother on the condition that she marries him. She is only in the anime, no one likes her, and on top of all of that, the Ouran wiki page for her says that she's 25? Yet Tamaki is a high schooler, no thank you, Predator. The wiki doesn't cite a source for this because of course it doesn't. It could be from a Japanese character guide or something though. Either way, no more Predators in my Ouran High School host club. Of course, most importantly, she said, dripping with sarcasm, the ending is dissatisfying as hell. Haruhi chases after Tamaki and the Predator, but she falls out of her carriage and falls into a lake, so Tamaki jumps after her and we get this scene. Now, You may have noticed that the theme song distinctly says, "Kiss, kiss, fall in love." It does not say, "Hug, hug, fall into a body of water." I was under the impression that the theme song was a social contract and the show did not hold up its end of the deal. All those years of queerbaiting and they just had to get us back with straight baiting? No, boo! Boo! I'm better now. The manga wasn't finished yet when the anime came out, so you can make the argument that the author didn't know these two were gonna be together or like she wanted to build up some suspense, but like, yeah, no. We all knew these two were going to get together. What, over here with Mr. Haruhi and I are the main characters, the rest of the homosexual supporting cast can fuck off. Towards the end here, I talked a lot about Ouran's negatives. I think a reboot would give the show a chance to rectify some of these things because there truly is more good than bad. The show means a lot to people, myself included, and I would love to see it exposed to a wider audience. Plus, there's so much more I would like to see adapted. The show only adapts the first 8 volumes and 1 episode from volume 9, so we have so much more content to work with. Ouran High School Host Club is just as relevant, if not more so than it was 20 years ago. If modern day audiences took to heated rivalry the way they did, I think there's room for a return of this beloved parody for a global audience. If you haven't yet, this is your sign to go watch the show. It is such a good time. Also, if you spent the last 20 years waiting for a season 2, this is your sign to go read the manga. Start cutting onions now, you'll need an excuse. Anyway, any last thoughts on things?
I both remember more and less of this show than I thought I did.
I was impressed with Rebecca. That did make me laugh, not gonna lie. I'm like, you weren't
Look,
wrong.
I got that it was an
You
R
weren't right.
name. Okay?
It was an R name. You got that.
I tried, okay? I think I'm actually probably gonna like sit and watch the full show again because I do think watching it with an older mindset, especially having experience in some fandoms like the John Locke and that whole era, especially with shows now like Heated Rivalry and very much enjoying that show. Shout out Harrison and All the Things She Said song. That is really catchy and I sing it a lot.
That is a good. Yeah.
I think it warrants another rewatch kind of with the more mature lens of truly understanding parody and satire.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I think you kind of said it, like as much as I kind of got that was the point with the camp and the over the top, I don't think I really got it.
Yeah. I know what you mean. I think especially when you look back at how young you were when we watched it. No, 100%. I've had so much fun rewatching it. It's such a funny show.
Because it's lighthearted. Like I feel like it covers like heavy topics, but with such a lighthearted touch.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't demean them. Like they're still serious topics.
It's a good one. I mean, it will always hold a special place in my heart. It was the second anime I ever watched. This anime was not meant to be anybody's second anime. I will say that.
Yeah.
You learn a lot. But thank you so much. I appreciate you joining me.
Yeah,
on this
trip down memory lane.
little adventure.
Thanks again to MildlyGothic. We've known each other since elementary school, so we were really in the thick of it together with this show. I would have put a lot more of our discussion in, but to be honest, we're kind of degenerates, so maybe that's best saved for another time.
They got yaoi hands. They do. They have yaoi hands.
I have a link to her video where she made her pajamas down below. You should honestly check that out. She's made some incredible stuff over the years, and I love hearing her thought process behind what she makes. She takes you through everything, mistakes included, so if you like cosplay, crafts, you name it, you should check out the link below. Thank you so much for sticking around for this long. I will see you in the next one. Cheers.
Hey guys, it's Credits Katie. Fun fact I wanted to share, in the anime, the school that the Zuka Club members attend is called the Lobelia Academy, but in the manga this is translated as the Roberia Academy. This is because the sounds for R and L are in what's known as free variation in the Japanese language. Japanese doesn't have an L sound, so to a native speaker there is no perceived difference between R and L. While these sounds seem pretty different to us, they're actually pronounced in similar areas of the mouth. This is a fact brought to you by my concentration in linguistics in college. Thank you, college. Also, every time I said Fujoshi, it took a lot of self-control not to yell out Fushigi, you know, like the ball. I want to do something a little different for this video, a little half reaction, half video essay style. There was a lot of experimentation in this one. I recorded in my office and it felt weird holding my mic, but it was fun to play around with. I also made the mistake of counting how many hours I spent making this video, and it pushed about 350. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I kept my day job for a reason. I am not what the kids call advertiser friendly, and I honestly don't plan to be. Even if I was monetized based on the content, I highly doubt YouTube would monetize this video. If you like this content and want to support me, I have a Buy Me a Coffee site that is linked on my channel and in the description, as well as a QR code at the end of this video. It's basically what it sounds like, just a "this video is cool, here's $5. It's not a subscription, just a one-time donation if you're interested. Thank you again for joining me. I always have a lot of fun making these things. Likes and subscribers always mean a lot. Thank you again.